right. We have been properly posted?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. Do we have any citizens that would like to speak? Yes, we do. If you just give us your name and address and,
Paul Reese, 841 Genesee Street, Waukesha, Wisconsin. I was here last month, too, I wanted to say, and it was posted that there was a meeting, but there wasn't a meeting. But it was posted outside, I took a picture of it, and it was on the board out there that there was gonna be a meeting, and I was here and there wasn't one. So I just wanted to inform the board that that happened. I stood up because I've been talking at the main school board meeting about a policy, or about what happened with the raises that the board gave itself. And what I was hoping is a policy that would come forward that would not allow once it came out of committee and went back to the school board, it could not be amended upward. That whatever came out of the policy, it would have to be sent back to committee if it had to be moved in an upward position, so that the citizens of the city of Waukesha could have a chance to respond to anything, any changes. Because you could essentially say we want to give ourselves a $50 raise, and when it came time to make the final vote, amend it to $5,000. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. So if you had a policy that would have to, if it had to be amended upward, it would have to go back to committee in order to do so, would prevent that from happening. And I feel that that's essentially what happened, just the decimal point was just a little different, or a little less zeros.
Follow
So,
policy.
thanks.
thank you. I'll just make one correction to your comment. The school district is more than the city of Waukesha, so I'm sure you implied that anybody eligible would be concerned, so thank you. There are no other citizens here, so we'll have approval of the minutes from the February meeting.
Madam Chairman, I move to accept the policy committee minutes as presented from the February 18th, 2014 meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Not? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And now we have revisions to policy 5141, 3G, guidelines for handling communicable diseases. Mr. Gray, you have some.
And there's a very, very small change on page 2. And this is recommended by Jen Wimmer. And you can see it's item 10 on line 33, 34, 35 in that area. And it's just crossing out the students and the sent home for treatment, replacing with parents of students and then notified. So it's a relatively small change.
Right, makes sense too. Mr. Zink.
Todd, if school staff recognizes that this situation does exist in a student, then we call the parents and say that we've identified this, or we don't say we identified this? Because it says the primary responsibility for identification and treatment lies with the parents.
Right,
School
we-
staff shall provide information, meaning what,
We
regarding?
would notify them that we think there's an issue and
We
it should have been
think,
checked out.
okay.
Now, it might be checked out by our school nurse as well, but
Yes.
we also ask the parents to check it out too.
So if the school nurse would identify it and the parent would not agree with that diagnosis, then what?
At some point, if we felt that the student could potentially be a danger to other students, they would have to stay home
Okay.
until it's taken care
Okay.
of.
Because I would think that the school nurse would, making a recommendation like that would be quite accurate, because she's a registered nurse, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
I know it's a very difficult thing for parents to deal with, not because, it just causes so many problems at home with
Right.
the cleaning up and laundry. I mean, I know from when I was, ooh,
Yeah,
it's a difficult problem to deal with.
Right.
And lots of times, you know, those same kids reinfect if the sites are not real clean.
yeah.
So,
So that's why, you know, if we do believe they have it and they aren't taking care of it,
Yeah.
we can ask them to
okay, well, that's
remain
good.
home until it has been cleared
Good,
up.
because otherwise we'd have an epidemic.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Karen?
Thank you. So why aren't they sent home for
Well, they
treatment?
might be, but they typically will call the parents will come and pick them up, if that's the case, but,
Should we?
depending on the situation with the parent and so on. This, you know, we notify the parent, our expectation
Immediately.
is the parent will come and pick them up or take care of them and so on, but, the policies say that it's sent home, that's not a good policy, just send kids home
Right,
unless we think the parent should pick them up,
right.
just for their own safety.
What if, because I've heard that maybe the parent can't come and get them
Mm-hmm.
or doesn't want to.
Right, then they would probably be
Isolate the
quarantined in
kid.
the health
Yeah,
room.
right.
And then I've heard of that is not good either because then we've got it there. And other kids that are getting sick are in the same room.
Right,
Can we
but-
say?
But the problem is we just can't put a young student out on the street.
Right.
No,
So-
but that's why, as a parent, I fill out in the beginning, maybe they can't reach me on the phone. I've got A, B, and C. I've got my neighbors, I've got my mother-in-law.
Oh,
so that
each student
if
has
that child
an
is-
emergency card with those
Yes.
contacts on there.
So can we say something about if the parent is unable to,
If
pick up
they've
the
given us
child.
authorization to contact another family member or a neighbor, yeah.
okay, do we give that recommendation to, do the nurses know what the steps are? If mom
Yes.
can't come, is it our job to
Usually it's the
protect
school
the other
secretary
kids?
that has that information.
Or the
But
health
the
room
nurses would know
person.
it too.
Okay, because I was told that they're not, that's it. They're supposed to call mom, and sometimes they sit there all day.
Yeah.
So can we make it clear that,
We can try, but again, if they don't have a alternative contact available, or there's someone who can't pick up, you know, a young child, then obviously they can't do it. If it's a high school student that's driven himself or herself to school, that's a different situation, but, if it's a young student, we just have no choice. We would have a heavy liability if we just
Right.
said, you know, go ahead and walk home.
absolutely,
So,
but that might be 5 out of 100, 5% out of 100 that absolutely
Right,
can't.
right,
If
yeah,
we try
yeah,
all the other steps. So
yeah.
I'm just making sure
Yeah.
that,
We do the best we can to make sure that, you know, the student can be picked up, but you are right, sometimes it's just very, very hard to
Right.
contact a parent, especially if they work a long ways away from the city.
Ms. Bazink?
And, you know, Karen, sometimes, you can't reason with the parent. You know, parents sometimes are pretty independent and they come if they want to, or if they can. Sometimes they can't. They don't maybe have transportation, maybe they carpool, whatever. But sometimes we are stuck with the kid. I know we are. And it is a problem, but,
can we say, do we have your permission to call your first contact on your list?
Well, sure we do, because
This is a
Yeah.
situation in which other kids are going to be at risk. Any child who has a fever and comes to the office, who banged their knee on the swing set, any of those.
it would be wonderful if everybody agreed, and, and thought about things like you're thinking about, because you're absolutely right, but everybody, has a different opinion about those kinds of things. So the school has to do the best that they can with what they've got. But yes, they do, at the beginning of the year, when you register, there's emergency numbers on the information that is provided with the school. And sure, we call those numbers, but sometimes, you dead end and you don't get any help, so it's,
And if we've
Especially
tried
if you have
everything, that's
students that
fine. I just
take-
want to try.
Yeah, if they take the
Yeah.
bus, they have no
right.
other way home,
Right.
especially if the parent is not working in the
And,
immediate
Karen,
area.
I can tell you that I, as principal, used to often transport kids home. I'd say to the parent, well, is it okay if I transport the kid? And they'll usually say, oh, yeah, fine. But sometimes, they can't come. Some people don't have cars, so. It's a no-win situation, I'm sorry to say.
I just thought as a policy, it could start here, that these are the actions that you are available to take, and then if mom says, okay, then at least we're all on the same page.
Well, I think we are, because we have a common practice, from school to school to school. But if you have a parent that doesn't want to cooperate, what are you going to do?
And that happens.
And that
We have
happens, that's realistic.
But then we can say, or at least then everyone knows, well, if that child is still here, that I know that my school has followed these steps.
Oh,
Otherwise,
I'm not
those
worried about, I think
little
the
things-
the nurses and the health room assistants follow pretty good practice, because we have not had, at least in my tenure, we've not had any issues with, those kind of communicable diseases. In fact, we've done really pretty well in terms of things like whooping cough and the flu compared to other districts around us, because we do a pretty good job of taking care of those kids, either getting them, home, getting the parent there, or quarantining them. So we've had a pretty good situation with those.
Any other discussion? No?
Do you need a motion?
Yes, I will need a motion.
Madam President, I move that we accept the revisions to policy number 5141.3G, guidelines for handling of communicable diseases as presented.
And I'll second.
All right. Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. 3-0.
Okay, the next one, you've got 8220 and 8230. 8220 does not at all apply to what we're talking about tonight, but it is part of that overall board development. 8230 is board member compensation, and this is it. This is the entire policy. So Karen came to see me some weeks back and said, I'd like you to see if you can come up with a policy that gives some guidelines for how board member compensation is determined, or the process that you would go through, and so there was, there wouldn't be any last-minute amendments. So on this white page, this is what I came up with as a draft, and again, it's just a draft, and it's certainly open to a lot of discussion, but basically, as we have now, any board member can request, of the board president that a review be made, which is what happened last time. The board president, should refer that or shall refer that to the Human Resources Committee for review with our assistance, because we have a lot of the data that we can put out there. And then the HR committee can determine whether they're going to recommend or not recommend to the full Board of Education. Whatever goes to the board, that would be number 3, that any change to the Board of Ed annual compensation that has been previously reviewed and noticed would be not subject to change via amendment at the board meeting, but would go back for further review and deliberation at Human Resources. There may be some other things you want to add in that piece, but that's kind of I think the issue that Karen had brought to my attention, or that she wanted to see a draft on. And number 4 is just basically the state law, that any adjustments that are actually made are made, the timing of it has to follow state law. For example, when the last salaries were approved, they would not take effect until the next election date, which is
April 1st.
right, when the new board members are sworn in, and
Right.
so.
Right.
So number 4 is just simply a kind of reiterate state law, but number 3 is the one that probably would require the most discussion. Number 2, that's kind of what we did in that particular case. We did put together some information for the HR committee. So again, I don't know if this is something that you want to take back, if you'd like me to look for some additional information, if you want to, because you just got this tonight, if you want to review that and then send me any revisions. I don't, while we want to put the policy in place, I don't think there's any immediate hurry, because there isn't going to be a vote for a number of years on this, as typically happens. So we do have some time, but
We have a whole year before an election also.
right, exactly, yeah.
So we
yeah.
do have some time, so
Right.
if you want to.
So I'd rather get this right.
Have
than
some
try to rush
discussion
through,
now
yeah.
on it, or Do you want anything else added?
I'd like to ask a question.
Yes.
Todd, you know, and Pat, perhaps you remember, when it was brought up, I don't think it came from the HR committee, did it? Did it?
Yes, yeah, it went
Did-
through HR.
Dan, yeah.
You made a recommendation to raise the board salary? Based-
Yeah, it was on
Well,
the-
you're on the HR committee.
Correct, I voted no.
It was on the agenda, however, and
Yeah.
it came forward to the board from your committee.
It came forward with a,
Not the
with,
raised, the regular one. Dan was in the meeting, but he did not say that he wanted to up it at the meeting. That happened here.
Oh,
But you
no, I-
approved it coming to the board.
The board, the HR committee approved it.
Yep.
And that coming forward to us and to the board was something that the public knew.
Right.
And we did have public people, we did have members in there from
We
the
had,
public.
you had public, you had people from the community in your HR meeting
Mm-hmm.
who were opposed to it? Really?
One, yes.
Yeah, there was a gentleman here that was,
Really?
He spoke out.
he
here,
spoke
too.
at the board meeting too.
I guess I just have to say, I can't understand why anybody would not want our Board of Education to ever get a raise in
well,
20
there's
years.
just, there's people out there don't want any of us ever
Really?
to get, yeah,
Wow.
so.
Do we, I wanted to research this, and I know you had spoke of the, some of the people on the city councilmen that also do the same thing as us? Do they vote on their own raises?
You have to. It's the only way you're gonna get a raise.
So why, what is the history of, why isn't everyone together, like your daughter, who gets an annual percentage?
Yeah, but she's a
Right, so, but we're considered employees now because we get taxed. So why isn't it all together? Why
Everybody
isn't
make
it
the same amount of
everybody?
money?
No, not
No,
make
the
the same amount of
same-
money, but when there's a.
It's how you set it up,
We're
frankly.
different, we're completely
this was set
different
up when?
organizations. We
Yeah.
technically are a function of the state. Even though we're a local, Board of Education, we're essentially a function of the state, whereas the county is separate from us, as is the city is separate from us, and each city does things differently, and
The county and,
we're a separate governmental body.
actually, the county and the city do it different. The city does not have an automatic time for raises for their council members. It has to be brought up like we do. The county, however, is different. When county raises go in effect for employees, the board gets it after the next election. So they've got their setup different. So it's automatic, so they never vote on their own increase in pay. So it's however you set it up.
I see.
How would you like to have it set up, Karen?
I just find it hard to be able to, the whole concept of taking the tax money that people trust us with to run this whole district, it's not our money, it's their money. For us to be able to say, we would like a raise, and do that without their permission of their money, I feel is wrong. And that's just my
But they
opinion.
don't ask anywhere, the federal government, the local government, the state government never goes to the public and asks.
But because
just
they
do it.
don't, doesn't make it right in my
Well,
eyes.
but
Well,
you have,
I think what you're gonna have to do is, you'd probably have to change state law on that.
Well, and,
Because the
and
current law provides, that's the only way it can be done,
and if,
so.
and if that's my own personal opinion, that's fine. But then
Mm-hmm.
to have it be, increased without public opinion at all, then I find that that's where we need to do something.
Well,
So
that's,
that's
that's what,
That's
what
what
I
it
think
is.
I've tried to capture in item 3, per your request when we met on this. So,
Thank you.
but again, I'll look for comments on this and,
Todd, we don't ask the public if we can give teacher raises, or raises for any of our employees in the school district. I mean,
Well, technically,
that's just
yeah, I mean,
understood that we
technically
use the
the-
budget accordingly.
yeah. I mean, you might get public input on it,
You might.
but typically, it's determined by who the voters vote for. If they don't like
Oh, sure.
what you're doing in that regard,
sure.
then you're typically voted out of
Right,
office. So
right.
that's generally how the public, one of the ways the public can react to.
But, we've never brought it to the public to vote on or to engage in discussion about, raises for district staff.
Yeah.
We've never done that. And
Well,
they
when
don't-
you deliberate in open session, that is designed to inform people.
Well, inform is
When
one
you,
thing.
when you print an agenda, when you put out an agenda that says,
Mm-hmm.
this is what that goes out to the public, and then
Sure.
they have a chance to
To
provide
voice,
input.
yeah.
So there's a number of different ways you can do it, but it's not perfect. I mean, putting those kind of things on what would almost be a referendum
Oh,
would be time-consuming and.
that'd be
and-
ridiculous.
Well, it would
It
slow down
would cost us so much
everything.
money to
Right.
do that.
Correct, right.
I think that in our Friday packet, this should go to all board members.
Okay.
So they can get back with us for, if some feedback, and then we can put this back on the agenda next month. See if they have any
I would
questions.
just like to ask Karen, so I understand, would you like it to say that that any elected officers in the school district of Waukesha cannot decide to vote themselves a raise? Is that what you would like us to say?
Well,
You can't do that.
That's
That's
not-
against
Well,
state
that's,
law.
but that's why I'm asking her, what does she want us
That-
to say?
You can't do that.
Okay, but what would you like us to say, Karen? So we can, I can understand so that we can, come to a compromise. What would you like it to say?
well, something about not being able to raise it the night of.
Oh, well,
And-
it does say
That's what
that.
this says.
That's
Yeah,
what this says.
I think Karen's talking about, amending
Upping
it
it.
that night.
Okay.
This doesn't prevent from the board or the HR committee deliberating over a set amount of money. It's just that this would, if there was going to be a raise that evening, it couldn't be done. It would have to go back to committee to review why, what, where that would happen, and then it would come back to the board again.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you could tie the hands of future boards by saying you could never
No.
do, the board could never.
State law would supersede the county, the school district on that.
Well, I
You
understand
can't do
what
that.
Karen wanted, and
Yeah, I
know.
too, but that's
Yeah.
unfortunately the way it's set
way it
up in
is,
the
yeah.
state of Wisconsin, so. And I really have never checked other states, so I don't know. But this seems to satisfy. I think this is
I
a
hope it
good
does, yeah.
adjustment to, and we haven't had, I've been on the board 11 years, going on 12, and we've never had a raise in all that time.
I've been
So
on
it
the
doesn't
board,
come
yeah.
off real often.
That's right. I was
At
on the
this
board
rate,
from
it's going to be another 10 years.
maybe 20. I've been on since 1999,
Right,
and we never,
right.
that was a
Yeah.
long time ago, and
Yeah.
we've never had
Yeah.
even 5 cents, so.
Yep.
And we are far behind the common council. What does the common council make, Pat?
I don't know, I know they just got an increase,
I
but I
thought,
and I know that the county is ahead of the
yeah, I know
the
that.
common council. And the reason you get compensation is because you do have expenses. You also have to get some competent people to run for the board. If you had no compensation at all, you probably wouldn't get anybody. We have very few people that are interested in running for school board now. When they find out the time commitment and other things, they're not interested. So there has to be
And it-
something in there.
The idea behind the board salary is to compensate board members from, if they have missed time, if they have to burn vacation time.
Babysitting.
And we know that this, with a lot of the legal things, that has to be done during the day. So we've got to pull people in off their jobs. And so typically, that's what it was designed for, is to compensate everyone equally for
Yes,
the amount of time that they would have to spend away from work or
yes.
and so on.
Yeah, certainly isn't a salary for a full-time or part-time job. It's kind of a
I guess not.
It's
little
not
thing.
Milwaukee County.
At any rate, I think that number 3 will solve everybody's
All right, okay.
questions, but I think that if
Yeah.
everybody got this in their board
I will do
packet,
that.
that would be a good idea.
Great, okay.
Any other discussion on that?
Not on that one, but,
Okay.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to bring back this 8220. There were some things in there that I noticed that we really don't follow carefully, so maybe we could review it and discuss it next month,
All right,
okay?
Will you let me know which areas
Well,
are?
I would say,
Okay.
line 23. I mean, I don't know that we've been encouraged for a long time to go to conferences because of the expense. I mean, I know years ago, we went out of town, et cetera, but we don't do that anymore. We used to
Well-
take turns going to the national convention,
Yeah.
but we haven't done that in a long time.
I will usually note all the WASB meetings.
Right, yeah, that you do.
And the joint convention
Right.
in Milwaukee, but those are the primary,
Right.
PD for board members. The other ones are things like, when the Business Alliance has
Right.
gatherings.
But there were two that we used to attend routinely, and that was
Right. Mm-hmm.
the National School Board Convention, and there was a one on technology when we were,
Right,
implementing,
yeah,
and that was very
yeah.
valuable. Also, line 27, I don't know that that's the practice that we follow. So I just think we should take a look
Okay,
at that.
All right,
I'm a stickler for
Yeah.
having policy that says we do what we do, and what we don't do, then we get rid of it. So,
okay.
and the other thing I want to change is, we've got this reference on 8230 to statutes 946.13. That has nothing to do with
oh,
That
okay.
has nothing to do at all with board
Oh.
compensation. That's just if a board member has say, an occupation that sells things to school districts, they can, as a board member, approve or help negotiate a contract that benefits themselves. This is something completely
That's this thing.
different than.
That's this thing.
Yeah, that is,
I was
when I saw that on there, I go,
What does
Oh,
it
that's-
mean?
That's actually designed for an administrator, for example, who might set up shop in a school and sell things to kids, or might, work out a deal for a company that he owns on
understand.
computers, or, so
Okay.
it's really not designed for this at all.
Yeah.
But I'll look, there is statutes that do speak to it, and we'll try to find those and
Okay.
plug those in, so.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, we are adjourned till Tuesday, May 20th.
May 20.
And, thank you all for attending, and if
Thank
that
you.
is canceled, I certainly hope the meeting notice is taken down.